Well, hey everybody, Mr. Reeves back with you as we continue looking at lesson 8.3 in the 6th grade math book, Solving Percent Problems. All right, so I did this introduction involving left-handed baseball gloves. Now let's actually go ahead and look at solving some problems. So the first type of problem they give us is finding the percent of a number, finding the percent of a number. So let me real quickly go over what I had just been talking about before. We are going to be setting up equivalent ratios, okay? So we're going to be using what the book calls the proportional method or proportional reasoning method, and we're going to be setting up equivalent ratios. And we're going to have a percent ratio, and we're going to have a quantity ratio. And for both of those ratios, we're going to have the part over the whole. And for the quantity, we're going to have the part over the whole. Now for percent, that will always be part over 100. All right? And I'm going to give you a little hint many times. And by the way, these will end up always being equal. All right? Many times you're going to see is and of. Because if you think about it, is means what it is equal to, and of means out of the whole thing. All right? So part over 100, all right, equals is over of. So I'm going to be referring to the is and the of, but when you see the of, the part that comes after the of, that's an indicator of a whole. And when you see is, that's an indicator of a part. All right? All right. Okay. Let's go ahead then and look at some problems here. So they want us to find 30% of 30% of 400, which is the problem we just did in the previous video, which hopefully you watched. Remember, 30% means 30 parts out of 100. So this is our percent ratio right here. And this is our quantity ratio. And remember, see, there's our of 400. That indicates that 400 is our whole. Okay, for this one, 30 was our part. That was the part of 100 that were left-handed gloves, if you watched the previous video. All right, here we have the whole. This is the whole shipment. Again, this assumes you watched the previous video with the gloves. All right, and then the part is what we're trying to find. We know that 30 out of every 100 is 30%. What would that same thing be? And then again, in my previous video, I referred to the equivalency factor, right? The equivalency factor, that's what we're going to be multiplying by. In order to get from 100, which is our percent, to 400, which is our whole, we had to multiply by 4. All right, so you find that equivalency factor and you multiply. Whatever you multiply in the bottom part, you have to multiply in the top part. That's what makes these two ratios equivalent. All right, now there is another way that I really should tell you. For these type of problems where you are given the percent and you're given the whole, you can simply multiply the percent by the whole. All right, so I could take this 30%, and many times you will see it changed to a decimal, 0.3 or 0.30, and I can multiply. Because when you see that word of, and we talked about this in a previous video as well, of indicates multiplication. All right, so when you are given the percentage and the whole, you can simply multiply the percent by the whole. And there's an algebraic reason for that. I'm not going to go through it. I'm going to be focusing on the proportional reasoning for solving. And the reason I'm going to focus on the proportional reasoning as opposed to the multiplication method is the proportional reasoning method works no matter what type of problem it is. The multiplication method only works for this one particular time. When you know the percent and when you know the whole of the quantity, you can simply multiply the percent as a decimal, or if you prefer as a ratio or a fraction, times the whole quantity. But you are welcome, of course, to use this method because it's mathematically correct and it works. I'm just not going to be modeling it for you. Okay? So if we take a look, we have a couple examples here. 28% of 25, so there's our 28% over 100, right? That is our percent quantity. I'm sorry, that is our percent ratio. This is our quantity ratio. All right, and you'll notice here the denominator is 100. So once again, our equivalency factor is 4. So then the question is, what do I have to multiply by? Because the percent is 4 times the quantity. Do you see that? The percent is 4 times the quantity. And the answer is, if you have to figure out what to multiply by, you can divide, right? So what times 4 is 28 is the same as saying what is 28 divided by 4. And of course, 28 divided by 4 is 7, right? So the answer, if we were going this way, we would do 28 divided by 4. All right. So once you know that equivalency factor, you divide the one you know by the equivalency factor, and you will get the missing part. Divide the one you know, divide the part you know by the equivalency factor, and you will get the missing part. So 28% of 25 is 7. 28% of 25 is 7. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead now here and look at these problems that they have. All right, in fact, I'm going to give myself a little more white space underneath here. So 38% of 50. So you're going to see me doing the same thing every time. I'm going to go percent, and I'm going to go quantity. All right, and then I'm going to put an equal sign, and I'm going to make a ratio. All right, and again, just remember, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing percent is going to be part over 100, okay? And quantity is going to be part over whole. And remember, we're going to be looking for is over of as our verbal clue. Is indicates a part, of indicates a whole. All right, so let's take a look at this one, what we have right here. We have 38%, so that part is real straightforward. We have 38 over 100. All right, if I did the same thing here, all right, this is 27%. That's 27 over 100. Okay, and then my last one over here, 60%. That's 60 over 100. All right, and then remember, we have the part over the whole. And here's that of 50. That indicates that 50 is our whole. We're trying to find out, all right, 38 parts out of 100 is equivalent to how many parts out of 50? All right, 27 parts out of 100. Again, this indicates that 300 is my whole. 27 parts out of 100 is how many parts out of 300, and 60 parts out of 100 is how many parts out of 75. Got it? So now what are we trying to do? Now we're trying to find that missing part, literally the missing part. So then what are we going to do? We're going to find that equivalency factor. All right, we're going to find that equivalency factor. What do I multiply by to get from the smaller one to the bigger one? All right, well, the smaller whole is 50, so the equivalency factor is times 2. The smaller whole is 100. 100 goes into 300 3 times. All right, and 75 does not go into 100 evenly, does it? So what do we do if it does not go in evenly? All right, well, one trick is to try to simplify. All right, So I'm going to take 60 over 100, and I know that that can be divided. That can be simplified down. If I divide by 2, I would get 30 over 50. If I divide by 4, I'm going to get 15 over 25. So I simplified it down. Do you see that? So what I did was I simplified. And I did that by dividing by 4. I divided the top by 4, and I divided the bottom by 4. And now, can you see? Now I have, let me go back to green. Now I have an equivalency factor, which is 3. All right? Now, another way you can do that, it's not always even going to simplify. If you need to find that equivalency factor and you don't know what it is, remember when you say, what do you multiply by, that's the same as dividing. So you can divide to find, or divide to find the equivalency factor. Okay. If we come to one we have to do that, I will let you know. I'm going to encourage you always to try to simplify. It's a good skill to be able to simplify fractions, and it works with this whole idea of proportional relationships. But believe it or not, we still haven't solved the problem. Okay, so we found our equivalency factor. We wrote our equivalent ratios. We found our equivalency factor. So now the question is, okay, what is that number there? Well, if going this way I multiply by 2, I'm going to do 38 divided by 2, right? Again, when I say what times 2 is 38, that's the same as saying what is 38 divided by 2. And 38 divided by 2 is 19. Okay? So the answer is 19. 38% of 50 is the same as 38 out of 100 is the same as 19 out of 50, which should make sense, right? Because you see how 19 is half of 38 and 50 is half of 100. All right, so if you're going to have 38 out of 100, you would have only 19 out of 50. You cut them both in half. All right, right here. Okay, we see that we have to multiply by 3. Well, this one's a little easier because we're going the same direction. So I'm simply going to do 27 times 3. 27 times 3. All right, so when I do 27 times 3, what am I going to get? Well, 25 times 3 would be 75. So we're going to get 81. All right, so 27% of 300 is 81. If you had 27 out of 100, you would have 81 out of 300. 300 is 3 times as big, so we need a number that is 3 times as big as 27 as well. And finally, this last one, all right, down here we see that 75 is 3 times as big. Again, this one is going the same direction, right? So I'm going to multiply by 3. So what do we get? We get 15 times 3 is equal to 45. So 60% of 75 is the same. 60 out of 100 is the same as having 45 out of 75, right? Which should make sense because 60 is just over half of 100. 45 is just over half of 75, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video here because I'm trying to avoid making videos that are too long. So this was doing the first type of problem where you are given the percent and you are given the number. We're going to continue looking on at some variations of these types of problems. All right, till next time.